Hello everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Twitch Tales, episode 71, or season 5, episode 3. Where did we leave off in the last episode? Well, Apis has found themselves not at home, having stepped into a Feywild portal to go and finally speak with the annoyance that is the Merry Gentleman. They stepped immediately back out of that portal, only to find themselves dressed in this weird living plant material and holding a note and having different things in their inventory, and the seasons were completely different. It seems like it's winter now. When you left on the moments before in spring, you realised quickly that you had not remembered any of your time in the Feywild, and what's more is a lot of time had passed while you were in the Feywild here on the material plane. Worrying for your friends back in Shadridge and Fondurg, and what was happening with the hobgoblins and the elves of the Four Sisters and whatever the demon portal was. You tried to find where you were and how to get back. You looked at the note and found that it was leading you to a village in the East Drenlark, a section of forest that you'd never heard of before. Eventually, after having some muddled thoughts and getting confused, it seems like this forest had magical qualities to it, you found a guardian, a forest guardian, a wood elf druid called Seed, who led you to what was called a steam sentinel. And having a short rest in the presence of this steam sentinel allowed you to clear up your mind of this fog, this sort of magic that was deliberately turning people away from this area of the forest. It seems like this is an ancient part of the forest that is protected by a lot of old magics. Seed took you to an old abandoned elven village, an ancient village that he was calling Drenvale, or at least he and his allies were calling Drenvale. He introduced you to a bunch of different critters of the forest, blink dogs and owls and sprites and fairies, pixies, and one unicorn, a unicorn called Julius, who is also one of the guardians of this village, the guardians of this ancient magic. This ancient village is therefore the reason of keeping the plains in a sort of well under wraps connected fashion, preventing any of the elemental chaos from bursting forth and creating chaos once more. Or so they have told you anyway. The purpose of this village, as you have been told, is to look after this gigantic elven tree in the centre of Drenvale, in the centre of this village. This tree seems to be some kind of a portal or a plug between the different planes of existence, particularly the Feywild and the Shadowfell, but also perhaps between the different elemental planes. Around this village are a series of Sentinels, these creatures of, or not creatures, these objects of great power that have something to do with keeping the portals in line. You've seen one such sentinel intact, called the Water Sentinel, which seemed to be in the shape of a waterfall that was very highly engineered to produce the shape of an elven woman as it fell. These beautiful falling rivulets forming the sort of curly hair of this elven woman. You've also seen another such sentinel in the steam rising from this block of wood above a superheated stone trough of water. Forced the steam out of the holes in this wood, and the steam as it rose formed a very rudimentary kind of elven man's face. And finally, you've seen another such sentinel, but not an intact one. You saw a huge, several dozens of feet long elven man lying on his back, taking the form of a huge hill of dirt, this mound of dirt, known as the Earth Sentinel. This particular one has been poisoned and salted, and nothing is growing on it, and it is in the process of being fixed by Seed and Julius and the surrounding critters of the forest. As far as you've been told, there are many such sentinels, and many of them, if not all of them, were destroyed or disrupted, and it is Seed's job to fix them. His job by whom? The Merry Gentleman. So you have ties in with Seed as a fellow ally of the Merry Gentlemen's, if indeed Apis is an ally of the Merry Gentlemen's. And Seed has been tasked with fixing these Sentinels. Apparently, by the looks of it, you have been sent by the Merry Gentlemen out of the Feywild to find Seed and help him with these Sentinels. Apis is probably still majorly concerned about what's happening back home as well, because from your perspective, yesterday you left the town of Shadridge and Fondurg, and today you're several months later helping some stranger with a completely different task. Hashtag Team Thumbs. Yes, Apis and Seed both have thumbs, so it's making it for a much easier job than when Seed was doing this alone with someone with cloven hooves and then other creatures with at best paws. So I think that's a pretty good recap up to where you are currently. You have just arrived at the Earth Sentinel and been trying to fix that, when some mounds of dirt and earth and rock all started to come to life and attack. It seems that these Sentinels are, one of their jobs once they're intact, once they're working, is to prevent too much overlap between the different planes of existence. And while this Earth Sentinel has been destroyed, it means that some of the elementals could come through and create havoc. After dispatching these elementals, in the aftermath, immediately after the elementals were dispatched, you transplanted the living plant material that was on your person down into the soil, and it seemed to take root there. And then you got a message in your head, like a confessional window opening up, and you being able to recognize that the person on the other side of this is a wizard friend of yours back from Fondurg called Vala. She was using a spell called Sending to send you a message of up to 25 words. And the message went as such. Apis, are you all right? Briar was expecting you for dinner yesterday. She was worried you'd gone back north to the warfront without saying goodbye. And as the spell goes, as soon as her part of the spell ends, your part begins. You can feel this. This window in your mind closing. You have 25 words to say something in response. You're in the middle of a conversation with Julius when this happens. You've just finished a fight, so your adrenaline's up, and suddenly this confusing message comes to your mind. I'll take the first one that came through. Usually I sort of go back and forth about how to respond to these things, but given the circumstances of being like, what? Why we? What? You're a little bit flustered, and you say, "What warfront? What? I just left Feywild yesterday. I'm somewhere Drenlach. I'm fixing things for portals. That wasn't me Briar met." And then you feel like you get the last word in just as the sort of window closes in your mind and the spell ends. You're left reeling and confused. The moment that you start to speak aloud this response, having just been in a sort of telepathic conversation with Julius, you see Julius flick around to you. His horn comes down towards you in a not unrecognisably intimidating fashion. He bends his front legs to give himself the power to spring forwards with his horn if needed. And he puts his horn towards you, relatively close, and you hear in your head, "Who are you talking to?" What do you say? I got a message from a wizard friend. An old friend. It's friend. Be calm. There's a tense moment as he sort of just stays there and keeps his horn pointed towards you, and Seed has stopped what he was doing now behind you, and he's just kind of watching. And he says, "I'm sorry." And he puts his head back and stands upright again and looks at you in the eye, and with one of his eyes anyway, his horse-like eyes. He says, I'm sorry that I doubted, but I must be careful about who we tell of this location. Drenlach is fine. Do not give away any further detail of our location, please. They were they were in trouble. I haven't heard from them in a long while, I guess. They seem to be in trouble. There's a war back home by the sounds of it, and they thought that I was there with them. She was asking why I didn't come to dinner, and if I went to war, and I was confused, and I was just telling them that it wasn't me. Did you discuss the content of the response message? Due to the nature of this one being like out of the blue, I just picked the first one that came in. It was appropriately confused. Seed chimes in. Seed not tell anyone about here except Team Goo. And Julius says, yes, well done, Seed. I should have been clearer when you arrived that of the secrecy of this place, but I do require you to keep the existence of this place and the Sentinels to yourself. There's a good chance I'll hear from her again. Please try not to be startled. I will keep your secrets. If she messages again and I'm in the village, will it work? No. Divination spells and such similar spells, sending and such, they are reduced in complexity and they are reduced to almost to the point of non-existence in proximity to the village. The sending spell shouldn't have gone through to you at all if it wasn't for the fact that many of the Sentinels are down. I'm sorry to hear about your war back home. I'm sure the sooner we can get these Sentinels fixed, the sooner we can handle whatever it is that's over there. Right. Okay. I guess we'll get to work then. You start working on the Earth Sentinel again, making sure that the displaced plant material that you are wearing as verdant armor has transformed off of you and taken root into the ground. And the first thing you notice about it is that it seems to be growing not like Jumanji style growth, but it does seem to be sprouting like a time lapse of a creeping vine. It has rooted itself down into the ground quite dramatically at the feet of this Earth Sentinel, and then from that point it is growing outwards. It seems to be enjoying, for want of a less anthropomorphized verb. It seems to be having a good time of where it has been placed. You get the impression that this creeper, this vine plant that you've had, is in some way designed for, or has been cultivated for, the removal of these sorts of toxins and salts and such of the earth, and it seems like it's perfectly well made for this task. It's only about 5 more minutes, though, when a window opens in your mind again. And you hear Vala saying, "If that's not you, we have big trouble. What gift did you give me on your birthday? Can't reply again today. I must conserve energy." And then as her side of it ends, you have a few seconds to decide what is it you're responding to. Now that you are semi-expecting it, now we can have the discussion about what we should respond. It can't be like a big 10-minute thing, because it is still like a window that opens in Apis' mind and starts to close. Dragon blood. Correct. Dragon blood was the gift that you gave her on your birthday, because it happened to be the same day that she was resurrected. It seems like she has asked you this because she is trying to ascertain whether you are the correct one, or whether this thing she saw yesterday was the correct Apis. She's asking you something that she probably believes only you would know. So dragon blood is what you gave her. What else do you want to say in this message back to her? New life and dragon blood. Tell her about demon shapeshifters. Also mention what day we were in last in Corinthial. Can we ask her a question to confirm it's her? You can do so. Dirty the Savage, yeah. What do you want to ask her? Due to the nature of the sending spell, you recognize the sender, but that's not to say that she couldn't have first, before sending this sending spell, somebody could have disguised themselves with magic to look and sound like Vala and to take on the Vala personality and then send as Vala, and then perhaps, you don't know how the spell works, perhaps then, yes, maybe she would, maybe you'd be convinced that the person sending it was Vala. So if you want to ask a question to try and confirm it's her, you can do so. Dragonblood, stay guarded and gather information. I'm indisposed now, but please keep me updated. She can't reply again today. She's out of spell slots for the day. That's, well, not necessarily out of spell slots, but she did specify, can't reply again today, I must conserve energy. If there is indeed a warfront that's not too far from Fondurg, there's a very good chance that they need the highest level wizard that they've got to not waste her spell slots too much. It is a 3rd level spell every time she casts Sending. Next time, need current date. Dragonblood and New Life. Your messages won't get through when I'm not here. Message at noon. That's a good idea, Wraith, because then you can prepare yourself for being able to receive the message. It was Dragonblood. Be careful. I've heard tales of shapeshifters in the woods. Been gone for months. When was the last time we met? Something like that. Alright, let's start to put this together. Let's use Wraiths here as a base, and then we can adapt as needed. Dragonblood and New Life. Your messages won't get through, won't always get through, to save some numbers, because we only get 25 words. Your messages won't always get through. Message at noon. What date is it? Because we didn't know the date, right? What date is it? Something like that, maybe. What do we think? What else do we want to add? We wanted to add something about shapeshifters, didn't we? A question about old chap would work. She told us to keep the secret between her and us. Yes, that actually was that is something that Apis would know. Is very likely to be something that only Vala would know, unless things have changed in the several months that you've been gone. What's the date would save a word there. What else do we want to add in here? Is there anything else particularly informational that we need? Scrap the date, not urgent. Beware shapeshifters. Yeah, just beware shapeshifters. So Vala will know how long the imposter has been around. Date's not urgent, focus on the shapeshifters. Alright, a lot of people saying remove the date question. We can always ask somebody else that, so we will remove the date. And what we got? Dragonblood. Dragonblood and New Life. Your messages won't always get through. Message at noon. Beware shapeshifters. We've still got 9 words. What's our motivation for staying in this location rather than just heading home to help? You don't really know where you are and how to get back home to help. What you do know is you're on a different island. You currently don't have a way to return to where you were. Oh, the braces. Yes, you guys wanted to ask about the braces, didn't you? Who's old chap? Who's old chap? Did you refer to him as old chap? What's hiding in Undead Forest? Remembering that she can't respond. Not today, anyway. Working with Fae to get help. That could work. Beware shapeshifters. I feel like beware demon shapeshifters because you know that demons are involved and that is extra information to give her. Her knowing that we gave her a gift on our birthdays, it's probably her sending the message. Yeah, probably, but, you know, being sure might be worth it. Alright, let's have a look. Dragonblood and New Life. Messages won't always get through. Message at noon. Working with Fae to get help. Beware demon shapeshifters. 3 words left. What's the date? Where's Warfront? Where's Warfront? Sending not guaranteed. Messages not guaranteed. Sending not guaranteed. Sending not guaranteed, sure. Sending not guaranteed saves us 2 words. We've got 5 words left. Sending not guaranteed. All right, I'm gonna call it because you know this window is closing and we've been chatting for a long time now. Left to Feywild on. I left shortly after funeral because then you're getting across that you're on time shift versus in real life. Yeah, exactly right. Where's the Warfront reached? Do we want to ask? All right, just quickly tell me, is it going to be a Warfront or something to do with the date? Where's the Warfront reached now? Or or I left for Feywild on whatever. Because where's the warfront reached is a question that she won't be able to answer until noon tomorrow. The date that we left. Date. Alright, most people saying the date. So with our last words, I left for Feywild. I'm not bothering to count this. I left for Feywild after funeral. Boom. Alright, that's what you see. You respond. I'll say that that's 25 words, I don't care. She, as the windows, she comes through with the, what gift did you give me on your birthday? Can't reply again today, I must conserve energy. And then as the window is closing, you manage to say, dragon blood and new life. Sending, not guaranteed, message at noon. Working with Fae to get help. Beware demon shapeshifters. I left for Feywild after funeral. And just as you're saying the word funeral, this message cuts off in your head. You hope and expect that Vala, being a very intelligent book-smart wizard, logical and rational and reasonable, will understand the context that you're using and the funeral that you will be referring to, given the context of everything else that you're talking about. The date that she came back to life and all of that was the same day that there was another funeral. Or the day after that was the funeral, or whatever it was somewhere around there. Julius and Seed take note of you speaking again, and Julius says, I'm genuinely sorry for your difficulty here. If I knew how to get you home, at least for a visit, or to understand what's going on there, I would help. And you say, yeah, we need to hurry. My friends are in trouble back home, and our work here is important. Seed can fly Apis if not too far. It's much too far, Apis. My forest extends for many miles, and not even to the mountains. Beyond the mountains, as far as I understand, is a swamp, and beyond that is the sea. Far beyond the sea is the island that Apis is from. Thank you, Julius. Your sympathy truly helps. To the job, then, and you turn your attention back on the plant. The plant, you can see, is rooting itself down, and you can kind of see the almost waving, bubbling kind of soil as the roots are extending out from itself. It is not moving with supernatural rate, so it is going to take some time, especially to get out this. How long is this Earth? 50-foot long Earth Sentinel. But you feel like the roots will eventually reach far enough that they will do their job. If you can replicate this plant in some way, then it would be helpful. So casting the the verdant armor again, and then allowing it to run out. Seed can cast plant growth. So you could cast verdant armor and see if it runs out. And as you suggest this to Seed, he says, "Seed just make plant bigger." And then as he just like takes root himself in the ground, he walks around the front of the plant and then just kind of like steps in, puts his weight into his feet and really gets himself grounded in the ground in front of it. And then he just starts to do almost like this Tai Chi kind of movements in front of this plant, and he's doing up and down, and he's like getting his breath all in like this very rhythmic kind of periodicity. And as he's kind of waving, you can see the plant sort of like shifting with him. It's kind of growing and reducing and growing and reducing. And then he shifts into plant growth with the spell. And you can see that this plant suddenly starts to erupt from where it was, and now it seems like it's a chemical reaction that you can see. Sometimes you see like a time lapse of the elephant toothpaste reaction where you put it's H2SO4, it's a catalyst, I can't remember. It's dishwashing liquid and food coloring, and then it makes this huge huge eruption of like this big column of foam. Essentially, it kind of looks like that, but plant form. All of these vines and growths and stalks and new roots are erupting out from him and around him. It almost pushes you back off of the Sentinel from how erupting this plant is, but Seed manages to grow out this plant a little bit larger, and it seems this is going to be probably enough to fix the Sentinel over time. Once you've actually removed all of the toxins from the dirt of this Earth Sentinel, then perhaps the touch-up jobs can begin, of like making sure that the face and the structure of the elven man is actually still intact and still looking like it should be. You're not sure if there's any sort of enchantment that you have to do over the Sentinel or not. You ask that of Seed and Julius. Do we after this has done its thing? Is this done, or do we need to do something to the Sentinel to make it work? It doesn't stand up or anything, does it? Julius says, "I don't know. I haven't been here, but when we fixed the Steam Sentinel and the Water Sentinel, they didn't require any extra enchantment." Right. Perception check. Are we being watched? Very good question. Let's find out. Are you being watched as you look around yourself? You have the impression maybe we're being watched. He'd never seen Sentinel fixed. Let's have a little look. He'd hope it stand up. That's neat. Alright. Perception check. 16. 16 plus... There you go. 16 plus your perception modifier, which, because you're in the forest, allows forest bonus and takes it to a +8, I believe, which means that's a very good roll, a 24. With a 24, you have a look around the forest. You can definitely see movement around the forest. You can see the badgers and the moles and the birds that were around you when you were trying to fix this thing up in the first place. A lot of them sort of scattered when the Earth Sentinels started to... when the Earth Elementals started to come to life. But since you scattered them and went back to work, they're going back to their job that was what they were commanded to do during the last night's woodland demagogue. So you, with a 24 perception, you look around and you see all of that stuff, all of the animals, but you don't see any people watching you. You look up, you don't see anything flying overhead, any dragons. You don't see any elemental-looking people. You don't notice anything out of the ordinary. If you're pretty sure that if you did notice anything out of the ordinary, you'd notice it. If something is here watching you, then they're either invisible or particularly well hidden. Seed has passive perception. Yes, he does crazy high passive perception. He would notice before Apis. Right. Well, it seems that she should be able to take care of that Sentinel. I probably want to keep an eye on it though. Make sure it fully cleans it. What's next? And Julius says, I suppose we move on to the fire. The fire's relatively close by. We should probably walk in case there's issues there as well. I don't feel any issues over that area. No fiery creatures. Seed says, Fire Sentinel needs stone to fix. Fire Sentinel needs stone. You dwarf good with stone. You can use Pass Without a Trace on the way to the next Sentinel. You can if you want. Who wants to use Pass Without a Trace on the way to the next Sentinel, just in case there's things you need to keep secret from? Seed only slightly racist. He's just a negative. That was a -1 on charisma. Is it -1 or -2? You got negative to charisma, so it kind of made sense that you're maybe not the most politically correct. You haven't been raised in societies. You were being as forefront and just honest as you could. And you're like, dwarves are good with stone, aren't they? Is that an offensive thing to say? Can we stealth at a normal speed because ranger? You can, yes. You can stealth at normal speed, but if you pass without a trace, then you can stealth and +10 onto that as well as stealthing. Most people say no, don't bother with pass without a trace though. You have Julius with you, who, as a product of this being his forest, As a unicorn, it seems that you've gotten from context now a couple of times he's mentioned things where he can tell when stuff is off in his forest. He was able to tell when the Earth Sentinels, Earth Elementals were coming to life, because they are now living creatures within the bounds of his forest, and as such he knows where they are. So he will probably be a good first warning if there is something in this forest. Unless, of course, they are disguised by magic, and he is not powerful enough to be able to tell that they're there. What sort of stone is needed for the fire sentinel? It's a stone basin that is used as a fire pit in the shape of a woman's head, and it has been smashed in. So any stone that can fix the back of the fire pit will help. Unfortunately, it's quite a task. I'm not sure if you have any particular magics that are specific to stonework. Now that we have... it was important that we fix the Earth Sentinel first, however, that now that we have access to a more stable Earth plane of existence, there is a chance that we may be able to find a more permanent portal to the Earth plane. And if we can get to the plane of Earth, we'll be able to find whatever stone we need. Steed need make earth bowl to hold fire. Yes, it's a large bowl of sorts, a fire pit in the shape of a woman's head. Seed can mend with wood, but wood not good with fire. No, very much not. The merry gentleman provided the solution to the last problem. Maybe he's brought something to fix this next one too. You kind of say absent-mindedly, going through your belongings that you can see, like putting your hand in your bag and looking for anything that you don't recognise. You've already done this, so you know that it's somewhat futile, but maybe there's something you've overlooked. It's possible, but it's unlikely that he would simply solve all of our problems. It seems like he's possibly provided this plant because he knew how much we were struggling, or perhaps he's put some work into cultivating this plant specifically for this task. It may take him some time to finish the rest of them, if that's indeed what he's doing. I don't propose that the merry gentleman should be bothered with all of our problems. It's the reason that we're here, after all. Mortar from your herbalist kit isn't good enough. Unfortunately not, no. You can't just have a tiny little thing. It's not much of a sentinel. If only glue was invented, yeah. Or if somebody had the mending spell or something like that. Maybe fixing the Earth portal allows us to reach each one in each place we'll need to go to fix the next one in the series. Maybe. Maybe indeed. Right, well, sounds like we're going to have a hot time today. I hope things don't flare up. Nice. If we find a large enough stone, we can maybe planar warrior punch the hole. Maybe, yeah. Is there a way to quickly petrify wood? That might work as stone, and then Seed could shape the wood to fix the holes easily. You do have the mending spell. Yes, you do have the mending spell, but you don't have the initial pieces of the stone. So if you can somehow shape stone into the regular sort of sizes and shapes and chunks that you need, and then use the mending spell on the two pieces of wood, the two pieces of stone, you might be able to mend them together. I mean, I'm relatively familiar with the history of stonework, but I'm afraid working with it isn't something I've had a lot of need for in my life. Right, well, once we get there, we'll see exactly what it takes, and if the Fire Sentinel is not the next one we need to fix, then perhaps we move on. You walk for some amount of time later until eventually you reach a clearing that has this kind of a small raised hill with a nice flat top on the surface of it, and in the very center of this little hillock is a large stone bowl. Particularly, you can see that it is about 20 feet in diameter, so it's a very large bowl. It is a stone basin that takes the shape and likeness of an elven woman's head, and it is resting on the ground, just the head, no neck or shoulders. Julius says, once this basin is filled with appropriate tinder and lit, and then Seed says, fire and smoke make hair. He says, yes, the fire and the smoke make the hair of the woman. And he takes you around the back of this this bowl, and you can see that the basin dips down at the back, sort of following the hairline of a person's head. And everywhere where the scalp and hairpiece would be of this woman is open to being the fire. You're saying her hair is lit. She's got lit hair. And then you see the structure of this stone basin is mainly just smashed up, and a lot of the stonework is just kind of piled up inside of the basin. The sides of it are cracked. The face is sort of cracked as well. You can tell that there's a lot of just general stonework needed to fix this. Anybody who has spells such as Stone Shape would be a perfect spell for this. As I say, if you could potentially get the pieces all in the right place and then hit mending on it, it could possibly be done, but like some of the pieces are missing. You can tell that Seed has tried that a couple of times and it just hasn't taken. You also need to be aware of like structural integrity, because it's no point taking like a big piece and mending it onto the top. If it's only connected by this amount of rock, it'll crack again as soon as you've mended it or taken away the supports for it and all that stuff. Is there any clay nearby? I believe we should be able to find clay in riverbeds. What's your thought here? Still want to try TomTom for an earth portal, as mentioned above. Yeah, you put your hand out and say, TomTom, where's the nearest portal to the plane of Earth? And TomTom, the little beetle, comes out onto your palm of your hand and looks up at you with his little antenna. And then as soon as you ask for the plane of Earth, he turns and starts running around your hand. He seems to be a little bit muddled in his direction. He runs halfway up a finger and then runs back down and halfway up the next finger. I will say make an insight check. You're kind of trying to intuit some creature's behaviour, which is exactly what insights are for. So let me turn the dice cam on. Let me roll you an insight check. A 10. 10 plus your insight. Alright, insight. You do not get forest bonus, sorry Wraith. But you do have your insight, which is your wisdom based. You're not proficient in insight, so it's just a +2. So 12 total with the insight. I'll say 12 is enough that you can kind of tell that, unlike when you asked about, I can't remember which portal it was before, and it was all over the place. He was left and right and up and down and on the back of your hand, and it seemed like he wasn't telling you there was no portal there. It's just that he couldn't find a portal that was stationary long enough to point in a direction to it. This time he's still muddled and confused, but it's all in the similar sort of direction to the direction you have just walked from. It's all muddled in a direction, if that makes sense. It's not a specific portal still, but if you wanted to get to a portal, you'd know the direction of the forest that you would be likely to find one. Rob can't wait till we're out of forests, so we stop asking about the bonus. Hey, helicopter, go away. I'm in the middle of a stream here, and I can't close my window because it's goddamn hot. Can we use our stone proficiency to see what cracked the stone in the first place? You absolutely can, Redial. As a dwarf, you have whatchamacallit, stonework mastery or whatever it's called, that allows you to take double your proficiency with anything related to stonework. So I'm going to roll you a history check. You're not proficient in history, but by product of you being a dwarf, you are considered proficient in history. Is it? I always forget this, and it comes up quite a lot in my other game where there is a dwarf playing. Is it double proficiency like expertise, or is it advantage on his history checks? Because there is a difference. I can't be bothered looking it up, so I'll just go with double proficiency if nobody knows. Whenever you make an intelligence check, history related to the origin of stonework, you are considered proficient in the history skill and add double your proficiency. Okay, thank you very much, Sparrow. It is basically expertise. You have expertise in history related to stonework, even if you're not proficient in history. I should try and remember that. Expertise in history. Stonework expert. That's what I'm going to call it. I'm going to call it stonework expert in my mind. You're a stonework expert, meaning you've got expertise. Okay, we got it. So, not advantage, you just have double proficiency. That would mean you have a +3 from your intelligence, and then your proficiency bonus is a 3, so you'd add that twice, so you've got a +9 to this roll. Which is good, because that was below average with a 9. I forgot to turn the camera on, but yes, 18 total. To get below average and get an 18 is still very impressive. I love high modifiers in D&D, where you're like, ah, man, I rolled a 5, so that's only a 24. You have an 18 on your history check as you look at the stonework and see if you can tell what cracked it. It's difficult for a start, because it has been cracked for many years. It has been cracked and destroyed for a long time. So you can tell that there is growth around this fire basin that will also need to be cleaned off. There is mosses and algae and creeping vines and stuff that will probably need to be cleaned off of the outside of this stonework to sort of neaten up this woman's face before you can light the thing and it actually work. So you've got your gardening work cut out for you. Seed can probably help with a lot of that, but he's been focusing on the Earth Sentinel. Looking at the cracks in the stonework, the ones that are weathered by now, you can tell that it is likely blunt force that smashed this stonework. To know that it's blunt force, but know the size of this basin, 20 feet in diameter and appropriately sized for a human head, it is huge. And to know that it has been shattered by blunt force would require something of quite a big size. Quite a big size, or quite a lot of magnitude force behind the swing, or behind something smashed it. Yeah, perhaps a tree branch, a tree trunk, perhaps a giant, perhaps some kind of larger creature like a dragon. It could have been smashed with magic, like it could have been used like blunt force from magic, like thunder damage, or some kind of magical bludgeoning damage. With an 18 and the fact that it is such an old amount of damage, you can't tell exactly what, but it has been smashed by something smashing it from the side deliberately, it seems. You can also tell that with an 18, that it is deliberate damage. It's not been smashed in one place by like a hurricane just throwing a tree branch at it. It has been smashed, not rhythmically. It's been strategically. It has been smashed strategically by various different blow points on the basin. You can tell from like the chips of stonework that have fallen off of it and like been well and truly stuck down into the dirt around you, that like there's been blowback from things hitting it from the outside. You can also tell that with an 18. It has been hit from the outside of the basin on all sides, it hasn't exploded from the inside. Seed kill giant as snake. Pointy eat giant. Now pointy big hungry all times. You kind of give kind of a glance to Julius, who's like kind of rolls his eyes at this mention of Pointy, this weird monster that's allowed to hang around the village eating things with a ravenous appetite. Someone really wanted to mess it up. Yeah, seems like it. I think we focus on the cleaning of the moss, etc., searching for other missing parts as we wait for the plant to clean up the Earth Sentinel. That'll probably be enough for today's daylight. Yes, probably is. So, a magic rope of mending would not... No, it's not a rope that mends other things. It is a rope that mends itself. If you cause damage to the rope, it will fix itself over time, unless it's completely destroyed. So, what happened here, Julius? Do you know? And he says, it was damaged before I arrived, so I don't know for sure. Speculation has it that it was the work of the same one that was damaging the rest of the Sentinels. We think it was Lazangan, or the Shadow Man. We are unfamiliar with his motives, but what we do know is he's claiming that he's trying to get back to the Shadowfell. And he believes that the tree is preventing him from doing so. He has tried to attack the village a few times now in a few different methods, with varying levels of success. I think it may have been his futile attempt to weaken the forces, the abjuration forces of the tree, by weakening the Sentinels first, as if they were connected. Right. Is there a god of stone we can pray to for help? Yes, there is, and as a dwarf you would definitely know of them. Their name's Kivarez. Kivarez is the god of mountains, the god of caves, the god of the Underdark. They would probably be the closest you've got. Actually, there's a minor god as well. There's a lesser god called Mendeli. Mendeli is specifically the god of elementals, of the elements. Mendeli is the god of the elements. So Mendeli or Kivarez would probably be appropriate creatures to pray to. Perhaps we should offer to help them return home to the Shadowfell, then perhaps they will. Can we tell in years how old the damage is? No, unfortunately not with an 18. Just several years. Tom, where's the closest portal to the Shadowfell? It zips out across your finger and heads. Actually, no, it doesn't, because divination magic. It shoots out up your finger and then stops and turns around and comes back, and it seems to sort of like it. Less of a muddled... So when you asked about the Earth one before, it was moving with it, as if it was like trying to point you in a direction, but it was constantly... The direction of it was moving. Like you've taken a compass and you're kind of just moving a magnet near it in like a random fashion, and the compass needle is always constantly pointing to it, but it's moving. This one, it shot off in a direction and then stopped, and then turned and shot off in a different direction. And it's unlike the compass needle has moved, and instead it's like it has been removed and then replaced over here. And his muddled nature on your hand, Tom is a little more chaotic and a little bit more broken, a little bit more jagged in his movements. And it only takes like 2 or 3 of these. He's kind of making like a little triangle on your hand before he comes back to the center of your palm and looks up at you and just stops trying. And before, when you have been asking about portals that have not received a response, it just hasn't moved at all. Seed, can you take care of these plants protruding through the stone? It'll be a good start to fixing that sentinel. Yes, Seed make plants go away, and Seed just starts to hack away at these plants and tries to pull them back. I remember if he's got anything in specific. Druidcraft? Does Seed have Druidcraft? I don't remember. Let me check his... no, he doesn't. He's got Mending, Thorn Whip, and Woodworking. So he doesn't have Druidcraft because there was no druids to teach him. He taught himself all this magic for the most part, him and the Merry Gentleman. He's got Detect Magic, Goodberry, Longstrider, Speak with Animals, Thunderwave, Animal Messenger, Healing Spirit, Locate Object, Pass Without Trace, Plant Growth, Woodland Demagogue. I don't think he's got anything magic that can help in this moment, but he just helps with physical work. He just starts tearing away at some of the vines and scraping off with a blade. He's got something on his many different belt pouches, and just his attire that you can see has been cobbled together by various different things that he's found in the forest. They're like, oh, this would be useful to keep my pants up. And he's got like these almost like bandoliers of stuff around him, and like he's kind of like he's wearing cargo pants, but where each pocket has been attached separately with rope. And he just like pulls out of one of these pockets like something that looks kind of like a rusty painter's scraping tool, and he just starts scraping away at some of the dirt and the moss and stuff. And you're like, oh, I kind of meant like magical, but right, team thumbs it is. And you dive in to help too. You dive into having work with him, physical work, trying to clean off the mosses and the funguses and stuff. Julius can't really help too much with cloven hooves and a horn, so he's going to patrol the forest, go back to his usual work. He's got a lot of things to do as the guardian of the forest. He goes around, healing animals and helping and doing his unicorn things. So Julius is going to leave you to the work. Before he leaves, though, you say, Julius, is there anyone in the village who knows how to make things like mortar? He says, it is possible, yes. We have nearby villages of... there's an elven village relatively nearby that we saved from a hag relatively recently. And then there's the mycanid village. And then, of course, there's the village of the were creatures. But I must stress upon you as well the importance of not telling these places where we are or what it is that we're doing here. And then after saying that, he sits off. That unicorn's always resting on his no opposable thumbs excuse. Ugh, typical Julius, slacking off. Having just used, what was it, Banish. After just having used the Dispel Evil and Good to send back one of the bloody elementals to another plane of existence without having to kill it. Bloody slacking ever since then. Team No Thumbs. He's going to go and do his work. You and Seed work away trying to fix up the outside of this basin. Easy enough to do. It doesn't look like it's been done with magic. It's just, elbow grease to do it. So just out of curiosity, I want to see how well you're doing. Let's roll you an athletics check for a hard day's work. 12 plus your athletics of 4 makes a 16. 16 is a good roll. Not the best roll, but it is a good roll. And it takes you the rest of the day to get somewhere decent. You've got some cleaning up of the stonework to do, but you've got all of the vines off. I don't know if you guys have ever actually dealt with ivy or creeping vines or whatever, but they always leave behind the stuff that they actually stick to the wall with. All those little woodeny kind of bits that stick to the stonework. And so it's a lot of cleaning required, scraping and cleaning and things, but by the end of it you've cleaned off the vast majority of the outside, or at least the parts that you can reach, because to remind you, it's 20-foot diameter head, which means that it's, I haven't actually done the math, but it's probably like a 30-foot tall face, and you've managed to clean off this part. Looks like she's got a reverse beard to this elemental woman. Mel tried to find some good flowers. Yeah, sure. Mel buzzes around trying to find flowers as well. Don't know if someone told you that recently, Seed, but you're doing a great job. This forest is between good hands with you around. And Seed's like, oh, thank you. Seed make for good forest. Forest got bad lately with hags, but Team Goo deal with hag and Seed deal with other hag, and then forest move and attack village. But then that forest disappear and gone, and now Seed fix rest of forest. Seed make forest good again. Seed can probably use mending if we can shape the stones into the right spots. Yes, potentially. Mel check on Fey plant maybe? Seed says to you, and you say, yeah, probably. Mel could probably do that. And Mel comes buzzing down. You say, Mel, if we go sort of by the. I think, let me see. I don't think, actually, I'm going to retcon. I don't think that Mel would. I don't think Apis would be okay with Mel leaving to go all the way back to the Earth Sentinel. You're not exactly close by. It took a little bit to walk here. So you should probably just go and check on it yourselves, or you can go as a group on your way back to the village or something. But it's starting to get dark now. It's been most of the day cleaning this off. You've gotten to a point where now the primary work to be done is to get the stonework all fixed up. Do you think maybe filling the gaps with gravel would work? Maybe making gravel from the elementals that we defeated? And Seed says, gravel, maybe gravel, yes, but gravel fall from sides. How you make gravel stay where you put it? And you say, I'm not sure. Maybe. Well, maybe you're just filling the gaps with it though, like the cracks, and you point out some of the cracks. If we put stones in here, maybe it would. And Seed says no. Seed says no. When Seed fix steam sentinels take a lot of work. Take small gap and crack and holes in wrong places. No working. When Seed fix water, when rocks in wrong place, no sentinel. Sentinel need be perfect. Is there a tree with sticky sap that we could use? Oh, lots of tree with sap, yes. What's sap for? For holding the gravel in place. You could use tree sap to hold the gravel. No, Seed not think that work. I'm gonna tell you, you ain't half cobbling together fixes. This needs to be magically perfect. Essentially, this needs to be as good as when they created it with magic. You're losing the light now, though. So what do you want to do? You want to head back to the village, Do you want to head back to the Earth Sentinel and check on the plants, and then back to the village? Clay would work, maybe, potentially, but clay isn't stone, so possible, but not guaranteed. Is the Earth Sentinel on the way? Not exactly. It's not a million miles off. It's like instead of going the hypotenuse of a triangle, you're going like down here and then home. Don't dwarves have stonework magic? Nope. You got stonework understanding. You can know stuff about stonework, but you can't inherently magic them. Seed need get back village for feast time. We have time. Seed have time. Lots of time to fix Sentinel. Seed fix Sentinel in 2 days. After Seed work on feast magic, Seed go to mushrooms tomorrow. Seed need trade potions. Then next day Seed work on Sentinel. Seed work on Sentinel, then Seed work on people. Then Seed work on Sentinel. It seems like we need some mortar, and then some kind of magic fire to seal it. It's a minor detail, check it on the way back. Alright, so you're heading back and think it out overnight. So you start walking with Seed, and you're walking and talking. You're heading back in the direction of the Earth Sentinel just to check on the plants there. And as you go, you're talking about what you need for the basin and trying to explain what mortar is to Seed and all the rest of it. Trying to explain the sorts of things that you need to ask for when you go to the different villages, because as wise as Seed is and as good at like maintaining his own health as he is, he's not a stonework, he's not a mason, he's not a carpenter, he's not a builder of any kind. He's kind of just cobbled together fixes to already standing buildings in his village. He doesn't necessarily know the details of how to like mix concrete or mortar or whatever, so he hasn't known what to ask for, which is why he was kind of excited to see a dwarf, because he's like, oh, dwarf knows stonework. Elf know wood, dwarf know stone. If there was one time Lucy had actually used it, now would be what had actual use. If one time Lucifer could actual use, it would be now, just to shape this stonework. And you explain, I met a dragon recently who could shape stonework. He lived in a cave behind a waterfall, and he'd magically sort of created stone floors for the cave that he lived in. Clay would be very brittle once the fire sentinel was lit again. Don't want it crumbling under its own weight. Exactly right. Seed have lots of broken rock at village. Rock work with rock? It's possible. We need to, if we need to shape it and then meld it together. I don't know magics to do that. But if we can ask for people with mortar is that stuff I was saying that's like sludgy kind of like liquid stone, and then you put it in and then it dries and then it's like solid stone. So if we can get that, and rock at village make mortar? Not exactly, no. All right. After walking and talking, you arrive back at the Earth Sentinel, and you see that the plant growth is still there, I believe, because it's as far as I remember, it is a spell that doesn't go away. It's an instantaneous spell. Well, it's two different ways to do it. There's an 8-hour one and an instantaneous. Let me just double check. The instantaneous makes it suddenly grow and like quadruple in size, but it doesn't actually have as much of an ongoing effect, does it? Plant growth channels vitality into plants within a specific area. If you cast it using an action, use a point within range, and all normal plants, technically it shouldn't have worked, I guess, but hey, Seed's magic comes from the Ray Gentleman, so maybe he made it work. If you cast the spell using an action, choose a point within range. All normal plants in a 100-foot radius centered on that point becomes thick and overgrown. A creature moving through the area must spend 4 feet of movement. So it made it thick and overgrown, but it didn't really fill the entirety of the 50-foot mound with it. In order to do that, Seed will need to come back and spend all of a day, probably in 2 days' time, when he's like focusing on his sentinels again. Because if you didn't pick it up from what he said before, Seed likes to alternate his days between trying to fix sentinels and doing his trading and interacting with the various different villages that are around the Werefolk, the mycanids, and the Elven village. He goes between them and like tries to do some trading and tries to get anything he needs from them, potions and whatnot, and then alternating his days. So in 2 days' time, when he's back to sentinel fixing, he will probably go off to the Earth Elemental and cast for 8 hours the other side of plant growth. All plants in a half-mile radius become enriched for a year, yielding twice the normal amount of food when harvested, or obviously similar magic. So it would double and work twice as fast. So you check on the Earth Sentinel. It seems to be still fine. There's no Earth elementals around attacking the place anymore, and the growth is still there, and it still seems like the roots are doing whatever they're doing. Can Seed become a lava elemental? You ask this of him. Seed, can you become lava? What is lava? Like molten rock, like liquid rock. No, Seed not become liquid rock, but like really, really, really hot rock. Like if you melt rock. Seed become fire. Fire get really hot. Yeah, sort of like so. Can you become earth? And Seed says yes. Seed become like earth. Okay, can you become... So you can become fire and you can become earth. Can you become something that's kind of like fire and earth? Like a really, really hot earth that like is so hot that it kind of melts. Seed not know how to do that. Maybe there's an answer in the earth plane. Maybe we can shape stone there in exact shapes, which is why it was important for us to fix the earth one, which is why we got sent the armor, so we have access to what we need. Maybe, Wraith. Maybe there's tie-ins between needing stonework for the fire elemental and having the earth plane now have more stable portals when the earth one is fixed. Maybe. Be good to see if we go to the mushroom people, they might be able to help us with our lost memory. Yeah, maybe. This part of Apis thinks Sentinels should be our full-time effort. I'm worried about our friends. Mushroom people can help us with our memories, can't they? It's very, very possible. You talk to Apis, you talk to Seed on the way back from the Earth Elemental to the Drenvale village, and you talk about the mushrooms. You said you were going to visit the mushrooms tomorrow. Yeah, Seed visit mushroom. Seed have potion to get from mushroom to give to mushroom and ingredients from mushroom. These mushroom people, tell me about them, and Seed tells you a little about them. They use spores to talk to your mind, and they're friendly, and they like to make vision and talk in your mind with pictures, right? And can they affect your memories? Do you remember when you wake up, like what they talk to you during the whatever it was that when they talked to you in the mind? Do you remember it all? Yes. Do you remember anything that you didn't remember before? So he doesn't understand the question. You're like, you don't know what to ask Seed that makes it clearer what you're trying to ask Seed, and something that Seed's level of intelligence would understand. Whether or not they can manipulate memories or fix lost memories is yet to be seen. Seed give dead wood and compost. Yeah, Seed takes a bunch of like the rotting, the wood that I mentioned when you first arrived in the village, and you saw that hill with the space on it in the iron fence, and all of the sort of decaying dead wood. Seed takes some of that wood to visit the mushroom people, and then they like it, and they give him ingredients for his potion farm. And then he gives the potions to the were people? I can't remember your entire economy here, Seed. Can you help to remind me? You give the compost and wood to the mycanids, who give you potion ingredients for your farm. You make potions with the pixies at your farm, and you give those to either the elves or the were people. And the were people or the elves give you something in return. I can't remember. It's been a while. Man, it's been a while since we did Seed missions. Depending on what Seed needs. Or what do you get in return from the werefolk and the elves? I can't remember. What have they got for you that you need? We should look for dead wood too. Can you help me find something that the mushroom people will like so that I can trade with them too? And Seed says, yes, you have lots of wood. They like wood. and you're like, okay, and you're picking up a couple of like smaller rotting logs on the way back, but Seed's got a whole bunch of it gives a whole bunch of it at the village, and you're happy to take. You're welcome to take any of Seed's sort of rotting wood. You have visited the Earth Sentinel, and then I sort of hand-waved and said you were going back to the Drenvale, but when you get back to the Earth Sentinel, you ask TomTom for an Earth portal, and he zooms around all over the hand in every which direction. It's somewhere around you, but there's no like specific plane of portal to the plane of Earth yet. And it could be because the Earth Sentinel is far from being fixed yet. Given time, the Earth Sentinel will be fixed by this plant, potentially, or by this plant and then further work from you. But it's yet to be fixed, and so as you get towards the Earth Sentinel, there is a lot of potential distance to Earth plane of portals. Alright, you arrive back at the village, just as you're saying, can the mushroom people read your mind, Seed, and see if it ever led to awkward situations? Mushroom people read mind, yes. Mushroom people talk with mind into your mind, and then your mind talk to their mind. Do we have to use the Fire Sentinel's original stone to fix it, or can we carve new stones to fill in the hole? You ask that of Seed, and Seed doesn't know the answer. And once you get into the village proper, and you see Julius is there, you ask Julius. Julius doesn't know either. I would imagine the safest solution is to try and use the original stone, but I'm not sure if that's a requirement. It is not a stone sentinel, it is a fire sentinel, so I imagine that the fire is the most important part of it. Are we feeling any sensations as we ask TomTom these questions? Well, you are feeling the sort of very vague kind of crackling and prickling of your skin that you've felt pretty much the entire time in this forest. There are a lot of, while all of these sentinels are destroyed, there is a lot of overlapping magic in this forest, and you're feeling that. But you're not feeling any more different when you ask TomTom a question. Alright, so you're back in the village. Is there anything in particular you want to do? Do you want to skip through to the end of the next night? Because you've got end of tonight rather, because as you're arriving, there's other animals arriving as well and starting to like line up, waiting for the woodland demagogue. Seed heads out and starts his spell, talking to the animals. I'm gonna roll for Seed actually, see how well he does tonight. Oh, good, 17 plus. It's a charisma modifier thing, isn't it? It's charisma based animal handling check. You are proficient in animal handling with a +4 to that, so +3 total. So dirty 20. Dirty 20 is a good one. Let me look up what it does. Spells. What happens on a woodland demagogue with a dirty 20? With a 16 to 20, animals will carry and deliver small items to specified locations. They will retrieve or steal small items from enemies in the area and bring them to you. As well as looking after the nature in the area, eating and spoiling perishable items of enemies, helping you to set up and take down campsites and collect firewood, acting as lookouts and spies, reporting back to you with the location and on numbers of creatures in the area. So as they're arriving for the demagogue, this is how Seed is getting all of his rotting wood, is that they are going off to that shitty area of the forest where the hags were, and they're grabbing all of the wood and bringing it to Seed each day. And that's a part of the woodland demagogue. So Seed gives his command to come back again tomorrow to make sure he says that, so that he can keep commanding the animals. He always gives the sort of standing command to come back again same time tomorrow and bring more animals if you can find them. So he constantly is growing his animal army, his animal influence. Is there anything else you want to talk to about? Julius, Julius, if we melt down some gravel, do you think it could fill in the holes in the fire sentinel with molten stone and then clean it up once it cools down? If you have the ability to do that, I would say absolutely. That seems like a perfect fit for it. Fill it in how exactly? How do you intend to melt gravel? I want to see if there's any old stuff from the villagers still here. Maybe they have some mortar lying around and Seed just doesn't know what it is. We might not have to ask for any mortar if you fix the Fire Sentinel. You have a look around the village then, as Seed is doing his as Seed is doing his woodland demagogue and starting the feast with the animals. You're having a little look around the village. I will say, for a long story short, another adventuring party in my home game has already been to this village a few times and has already done this of like looking around and trying to loot it for any useful items. They weren't exactly looting, but they were investigating for any useful items. So you don't find anything of note. You don't find anything mortar useful. You do find like old tools that are no longer useful because they've been rusted beyond help. You find a bunch of different books which are written in Elvish that you don't speak. You find a bunch of picture books that are in Seed's house specifically, and Seed enjoys looking at the pictures of them. And again, the writing in those picture books are written in Elvish, and you gather from the books themselves that they are children's books. You can tell that there is a temple down the end to various different... It's sort of like one of these pantheonic temples to various gods. You can see that there are symbols there that you don't immediately recognize. I will have you roll a religion check. Ooh, 3. Not good. 3 plus 3 from your intelligence is a 6. You don't have inspiration or lucky horseshoe today, so there's no rerolls there. With a 6, you can tell that the temple at the end of this village is the primary building within this village. With your intelligence check, you can tell that there is a lot of religions accounted for, or a lot of gods accounted for in this temple, but you don't recognize any of them. There is potentially some that could be like precursors to the symbols used for gods that you do know. There's a couple of like crosses, for instance, but they don't seem to be crossed arrows. It might be that it's a cross of Ultimates, but it could just be a coincidence. There are gods there are symbols that are more simplified and swirls and designs that you don't recognize. It could also just be that these are the elven gods. It could just be that these are the symbols for the elvish symbols for the same gods that you worship, but you don't recognize them with the 6. You see that the temple is huge, and it is possible to get onto the top of it if you really try, because there is a tree off to the left of it with a spiraling staircase up the center of the tree, and then the tree sort of extends out onto a branch. It kind of looks like it's a tree house at one time, or potentially even a guardhouse, but it is up against the huge flat stone wall that is down one end of the village, right behind the back wall of this temple. If you wanted to get onto the top of the temple, I say this only because Seed has done so, you could climb up there and get onto the top of the temple. The temple is big and flat on the roof, and it leads underneath the branches of the larger tree. It would be one of the only ways that you could touch the larger tree without crossing over that large moat that's in the center. What else do you see in this village? Lots of various different residential huts. You go through each of those and see, as I've described, like old tools and beds and furniture that's long abandoned, like we're talking hundreds of years probably abandoned. Books that are mostly beyond reading because of how old they are. There's lots of destroyed paper. The ones that are readable, it seems, have already been collected into one spot for Seed to sort of go through. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I can give you that's interesting in this village. I think that's about it, I'm afraid. This village is very old and has been ransacked already. We could ask the bone dice if the fake Apis is friend or foe. That's a very good question. We could do that. Cost of using the dice is my next preferable question for the dice. We could do that. History books and maps, nothing like that, I'm afraid. There was a very, very important history book here, but somebody's taken it. That's in one of my home game parties. They found a history book that basically explained the origins of the universe. It's basically like a historical artifact. It's like one of the original Bibles of my world. It explains religion and everything. And she found it and didn't know what it was at first. And she just started reading it. And she was just like, "What's this?" And she went to a library once and was like, "Hey, I've got an old book." And the librarian was like, "Oh my god!" And you're just carrying it around. It's like having the Dead Sea Scrolls just in your pocket as an adventurer, doing your just like running and jumping and killing things. And then the librarian was like, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god!" Yeah, it's Tal's. And the librarian was like, "Give me it, give me it, give me it. It needs to be preserved." And she's like, "No, I haven't finished it yet. It's pretty interesting." She's like, "Oh god, oh god, oh god, oh god. Okay, at least promise me you'll read it with these." And she gave her like some silk gloves and like a stick for turning pages carefully and stuff. And she tried for like a week reading this thing, and she's like, "Nah." She took the gloves off and just reads it as normal. It's a very Talia thing to do. So there was a historical book in this village. Unfortunately, Tals has got it. But enough of the sidebar. Apis, having done a little exploration, has gone back outside just at the sort of tail end of this feast, eats with the rest of the animals and Seed. Is there anything in particular that you want to do before going to sleep? You want to use the dice? You haven't used the dice today, so you can ask the dice a question. For anyone who doesn't know, maybe you're newer to the game, you have a little box of bone dice, and the bone dice have your name on them. You don't know why. There's something to do with the Feywild. Every time you want to ask them a question, you can do so. You ask them a yes or no question, and you roll the dice, and they will give you a response. The first question of the day will always be a truthful response. The subsequent questions of the day have an increasing chance, you don't know what, but an increasing chance of a randomized answer. So, we're asking the dice something, because we might as well. It's a resource we haven't used today. What are we asking them? Ask if the copy is a friend or foe. Are we paying with our lifespan for using the dice? We could start to narrow in on like whether there's negative effects for using these dice, which is something that's been on a lot of Apis' mind. Spend an hour or two reading our book on the planes. Might learn information that we could learn could help. That could be an option as well, Millsy. You ask the dice a question and then read the plane book for the rest of the night. I think that's a good idea. Alright, we're asking the dice something. Remember, we want a positive answer to be wheeled, not woe. We get confused. Alright, let me put it to a poll as to what it is that we're going to ask. What's the subject of the dice going to be? Are we going to be asking about fake Apis and whether or not we need to be worried? We're going to ask the dice about whether or not using the dice is a detriment to us. Or are we going to ask the dice something else that I haven't thought of? Alright, with 67% of the vote, 2/3 of Apis wants to ask the dice about fake Apis and whether or not they're a problem, I guess. So what is the wording of the question we are going to ask the dice? Apis sits down after the meal with the animals. Apis goes back to their little private abode where they've been sleeping, where there is still a creeping plant rooted into the ground with a hole in the ceiling. You get your dice out. You get them out of the box, you look at the slightly yellowing bone. You wonder about whether or not they'd be useful as actual dice. Is fake Apis, Vala was talking about, a danger to my friends? That's a good question. Is that the wording we're going to use? Does anybody want to offer any suggestions to that? Is there a smithy here in this town? There is not. No, the elves here were not known for using metal too much. They were a very ancient druid guild. Is the person Briar expected for tea last night helpful to my friends? Helpful to my friends. The dice question suggestion is the one who had an appointment with the one we know as Briar, according to the one I took to be Vala, a danger to my friends. Now you're thinking like a lawyer. Getting around all the different possible loopholes of this tricky Robert bullshit. I'd flip it and say, are they helpful to my friends to avoid the double negative? Well done, fella. I definitely would have used that to my advantage. She expected as though even if it wasn't us. Yeah, is the one she expected. That's why it is the one who had an appointment with. Might make more sense because that one had the appointment with. Are they helpful to my friends? Having said that though, danger and helpful are not necessarily antitheses, and one can be both or one can be neither. So we're looking at whether they are helpful to your friends could not necessarily be what you want to know. What about our friends being safe from or around the doppelganger? Are my friends safe from... Okay, so let's go with that. Are my friends? Like, are they your friends? Are the people of Shadridge? Are they innocuous? That could be a good one. Are the people of Fondurg, because you know it was Fondurg that was dealing with them, safe from the one who had an appointment with the one who knows Briar, according to the one I took to be Fella? Does the doppelganger have ill intent? So the thing a lot of you are missing, that Felagund is saying and a few others are saying, is that the dice will answer weal or woe. The dice will answer yes or no. And in the past, Apis has asked the dice questions like, are they dangerous? And got an answer of weal, which is like usually a good thing, and is shown to you using good words and good images, and then been confused as to whether that means yes, or is it good so they're not dangerous, or is it good because it's yes, which means they are dangerous. So usually Apis has now, after being tricked by this a couple of times, Apis has now gotten into the habit of asking the dice a question worded such that the positive answer is yes. The answer that you want is the yes answer, because then it's less confusing when you get the answer from the dice. Of course, you can ask it however you want, but I'm just telling you, Apis knows this by now. I, as the Dungeon Master, have confused you guys as the player enough times with the answer to these dice that Apis would have been gotten into the habit of asking the dice in a particular way. Is the creature that is impersonating me near Fondurg safe? Safe or innocuous? All right. And for anyone who's relatively new to the show, there is a reason that I am this pedantic when it comes to the wording of asking the dice a question. It is important for me to be able to answer you correctly as the dice, that I know exactly what wording you use for the question. Which, of course, if you were a single person playing this game, would be a lot easier because it's a single person deciding what to ask. But I don't want to piss off half the chat by asking the wrong wording and be like, I didn't want to ask that. Apis, this is why Apis is indecisive as a character trait, because you're just sitting down looking at the dice going, what the hell am I going to ask these dice? Not safe because they themselves could be in not danger. Okay, safe to be around. Innocuous. Alright, we'll go with innocuous, because a few people have said that now. Does the creature impersonating me have what I would consider good intentions towards my friend Briar? That's an interesting way to put it. What do people think of Millsy's option there? Does the creature impersonating me have what I would consider good intentions towards my friend Briar? I like Millsy's, but my friends instead of just Briar. Okay, so let's look at this one then. Towards my friends. My friends in Fondurg or something. Alright. Last few minutes, just let's last minute, let's crack this in. Does the creature impersonating me have what I would consider good intentions towards my friend in Fondurg? My friends in Fondurg. The people I care about in Fondurg, okay. Instead of friends. Towards the people of Fondurg. The people I care about in Fondurg. They could still be dangerous even if they aren't impersonating us anymore. Would still get a wheel since they don't look like us anymore. Is the creature who was impersonating me. There you go. Is the creature who was impersonating me. Does the creature who was impersonating me have what I would consider good intentions towards the people I care about in Fondurg and Shadridge? I wish there was an easier way of doing this, because the wording does very much matter. I will tell you that much. But it does get a little tedious. Alright, last edition, I think. We'll go with myself, Fondurg, and Shadridge. Alright. Fingers crossed for peace of mind. Here we go. Good or neutral intentions. Okay, good or neutral intentions. That's what we ask. Alright, that's what we're asking. You grab the dice in your hand. Let me think of the answer, actually. You roll the dice. As they bounce on the wood in front of you, you ask, does the creature who is impersonating me have what I would consider good or neutral intentions towards myself and the people I care about in Fondurg and Shadridge? As the dice are hitting the wood in front of you, with each contact of the wood, you get a different sensation. The first thing is the sound of laughter, and the next is the sound of clinking glasses. You see a quick flash of an image of Briar drinking something and having sort of like a chuckle and spitting water out of her nose, and you're not sure who she's with or who she's laughing at. You get the smell of the bakery of the centre of Fondurg that seems to be putting out nice smells. You get these different sounds and smells from around Shadridge. You get a waft of the smell of Sam's perfume, and the taste that comes with it is that of the meal that you had when you went on the date with Sam. You are reminded of a few different sensations that you felt and saw and smelt and heard around Shadridge, and you are left with the sense of wheel. Some creature just using Apis as their dating profile. Could be. Thank the gods. Thanks every god we know. I think the merry gentleman made a copy of us so that we would agree to leave and help him. Maybe. There was a lot of 3s rolled, interestingly. 4 of the dice had a 3 on them. No, 5 of the dice. Interesting. Alright. With your mind somewhat satiated from that, you get to decide the level. You start to put your mind at rest, you grab the dice back together, and you place them back in the wooden box. You grab your plane book out and start to read about the planes of existence. Turning to the page of the chapter on the elemental planes, and particularly the elemental plane of Earth, because that's what's interesting you at the moment, having just finished the Earth Sentinel, and not finished, but been working on the Earth Sentinel. Read to Seed. Yeah, you come out. Seed comes to see you, and you read aloud the book of the planes to Seed. You're talking about the Earth elemental plane. I'm not going to improvise all of the lore of the Earth elemental plane for you, but basically speaking, it is a solid plane of rock, and further towards you learn about the fact that there is elemental chaos down one end and elemental law down the other end, where at the end of elemental law there is nothing but that element. It is pure dirt, the purest kind of dirt. And then there is sections within that of the purest kind of rock and the purest kind of clay and all of the different types of things that you would find on the elemental plane of Earth, but in different amount, all sectioned out. And then as you get further and further towards the elemental plane, elemental chaos side of the plane, it gets more and more disrupted, and these things are mixed in together. All of these different types of earth, rock, and clay, and sand, and all the rest of it. But not only that, but other elements start to bleed into the elemental plane, down towards the elemental plane, elemental chaos, until eventually down the furthest end of the chaos, all of the elements are equally represented in almost complete uniformity. It's almost so chaotic that it's uniform. It's everything is everywhere and all at once. Somewhere in the middle of that plane, where other elements have started to blend in smaller amounts, like the elemental plane of air leading to air pockets and caves, and the elemental plane of water leading in to make aquifers and underground lakes, you find places that are actually habitable to creatures that aren't earth elementals. Somewhere in the middle between law and chaos, in the neutrality, elemental neutrality, you find pockets that can be existed in. For the most part, you read about the denizens of the elemental plane. For the most part, it is inhabited by mephits and creatures that can burrow through rock as if it's water and they're swimming through it. You read about a creature called a Zorn, that is a three-legged creature that tunnels through rock and eats gemstones, devours gemstones. You read a little bit about the border planes between the different elements, where you get further from the elemental plane of earth into the elemental plane of air, and as you're going towards the elemental plane of air, it turns more and more like quicksand, or like it turns into this sort of more aerated sand, until eventually the floor is sort of giving way and you're sliding through sand, and you get closer and closer to the elemental plane of air, and it just becomes more and more of this sandstorm, this really thick sandstorm where you're basically pushing through sand. Continuing further and further towards the plane of air, you'll eventually get into just like falling through infinite air, but with sand hitting you in the face, until eventually the sand disappears and you're in the plane of air. Likewise, on the plane of fire, you see this sort of ash storm and this lava border that leads through a plane of metal. You kind of skip over that because that's not the parts that you're reading into. If you want specifics about the different elemental planes, I will happily go into them for you, but I'm not just going to stand here and tell you everything about everything. The Earth plane is like a hub, links to all the other planes. All of the elemental planes are hubs. All of the elemental planes are existing in one thing. I think... it would be quite a lot of work for me to get it up now, and it's not as important. But I will, in the edit at this point, we can put in the elemental plane image, and people can see what my elemental planes look like. The elemental plane is essentially, you can think of it like a sphere, and the four sort of sides of this sphere, kind of like an inflate. If you take a D4, and inflate it until it's a sphere, each of the four sides are the four elements, and then the edges are the secondary quasi-elemental planes where the two elements meet, and then the points are the tertiary elemental planes where three elements meet. This is the sorts of things that you're reading about in this book. Insight check to see if Seed enjoyed this. Seed has gone to sleep for the first time in his life as an elf and doesn't sleep. He has gone to... Seed is probably enjoying this quite a lot. He can turn into elementals after all. As a druid of a high enough level, he can turn into elementals. So he's enjoying hearing about them. Eventually, though, you are knackered and go to sleep yourself. You have a long rest. I will have you make a wisdom saving throw, please, as you are resting. Is that a nat 1? That's a nat 1. With a nat 1, you have a fine and dandy night. You You dream, but you do not remember any dreams. When you wake up, you do not recover any further memory. The next day, though, you wake up, and thanks to this handy long rest thing, boop, everything comes back except for the inspiration, which you have to earn. In the morning, you wake to find that Seed has already been up for several hours after having done his morning routine of creating good berries, feeding himself, feeding Pointy, talking to any animals that are around, giving them their tasks, all of his usual stuff, casting verdant armor on himself. He's ready for you to get up. Eventually he comes to wake you. Come on, wake up. And waking up, he says, go mushroom people now, yes? And you say, yeah, let's do this. You wake up, you put your armor back on, you get yourself ready. He gives you a good berry. Can't remember if Apis has ever had a good berry before. But in order to not need ration, you start to get out your rations and eat them. And Seed says, no need food, eat this. And he gives you a berry, like a little perfectly round, like one of those really big fat blueberries, but it's bright red. And it's like a cartoonish version of what a berry would look like a holly berry, I guess. You eat it because you've got no reason to distrust Seed, I imagine. It tastes very strongly like vanilla, and as soon as you've eaten it, you feel like your stomach gets like full, like you've got that same sort of, not quite bloated, but you've got that same sort of sensation as if you just finished like a large meal. Not overfaced yourself, but like you are satiated. You say, what was that? And he says, that food berry for food. Make not hungry no more. Oh, okay. Thank you. Are there any dangers that I should watch out for while we're with those mushrooms, Seed? Dangers of cave, but no major danger. Seed berry is best berry. Yeah. Ask him for a handful of them for our inventory. Have you got more of those berries? Yes. You want more berry? More berry make you feel bad for too much food. You say, right, okay. Maybe I'll just take one more just in case, and you take one good berry, and you can remember that you have one good berry in your inventory. The magic of them only are potent for 24 hours. So if you get into a situation where you need to heal somebody one hit point, you can do so. But I should mention in my games that good berry, because they provide enough nutrition to support you for a full day, if you eat many of them, you start to feel sick. Can Mel have one too? He says, Mel already eat one. And he's already fed Mel one. He's smushed it down and made it like a nectar for her, and he's already fed her. Mel, as you head out into the village, you can see is making real good friends with the bees. Mel is basically helping the little garden of farming and ingredients and potion making ingredients that is over by the center of the village. Seed said several times that we can get a pointy from mushroom caves, so we need to watch overhead so we don't get stabbed by a pointy. Well remembered, Wraith. You start to put your stuff together. You get Mel to come down as well, come over to you. Seed comes out of one of the nearby buildings that you were investigating yesterday and saw basically his workshop where he likes to put his potions together. He's got a few empty vials with him that he's going to use for the ingredients that they give him, things that he can't necessarily cultivate or grow, or things that they do better than he does at the moment. And in return, he's going to take them some mulched up wood and dirty wood. He doesn't need to necessarily carry it himself. That's part of what he can do with the woodland demagogue. He gets the animals to take it across for them. However, the area that they need to go to is over a very large river, and so he can't just give wood to some ground dwelling creatures. It's only really basically the stuff that he can't the stuff that the birds can't carry is the stuff that Seed is going to take with him. So you can see he's got like this, almost like a baby Bjorn kind of a thing. He's got like this sling over his neck, and it's just stuffed with these like bits of rotten wood. I don't think there's anything else you want to do before heading out, is there? If there is, speak now or forever hold your peace. If Seed can lift stuff, he can wild shape with it. Oh, that's a very good point. Yeah, I forgot about that. If you can carry it, you can wild shape it into yourself. Is that how Seed would normally get to the mushroom people, Cake Ladder? Would be turn into an owl? Because you could do that now and save Julius the teleport. Especially because Mel doesn't like the teleporting. Come along, Mel. You can play with your friends when you get back. Just 5 more minutes. And John, we're just in the middle of some. No, I said now. We're going now. We'll play again later. Are we wearing our regular armor or requesting more verdant armor? I believe you're wearing your regular armor. If there's anything you want to do differently, you can say so. You would normally just fly stuff there as the owl. Okay, cool. Is there some kind of cart here? Seed would have probably put together a cart. Oh, there is a cart. your old chest, right? With the wheels on it. Regular armor? Okay. So you're in your regular armor. You've gotten yourself a few handfuls of wooden items and stuff as well. And Seed's kind of loaded up himself with it, holding it like big old bundles in front of him, as well as the sort of baby Bjorn on his back, of like holding these like as much rotting wood as he can. This morning you can see a bunch of birds of the forest have sort of taken off with pieces of the wood as well, small pieces that they can carry, like twigs and nestable kind of sizes, and they're flying off as well with it. And Seed stacks up as much as he can, and then he says, ready to go? And then you say, yes, yeah, I'm ready to go. You see his face, his eyes start to go really wide, and his face starts to go sort of like a tan colour, as his skin starts to sprout feathers, his arms turn into wings. You can see that, as with all druids, when you are wild shaping, anything you are carrying or wearing can wild shape into your person. So all of this wood that he's carrying shifts into him, just as you're about to say, like, are you sure you're alright carrying all of that all of the way to the mushroom people? You're halfway through asking him when whoosh, it becomes this giant owl that is no longer carrying anything, but he's absorbed it all into his person. And then before you get a word of warning, whoosh, his wings go out, his talons come down and grab a hold of you very painfully. And then he lifts you up, and whoosh, you just start to fly off in a you can kind of make out that it's a southwesterly direction. An enlarged giant owl, yes. You can be up to the huge category, so you can pick you up with the greatest of ease without having to make checks. We have armor, probably just uncomfortable pressure. Oh yeah, it's definitely not enough to like cause damage, but it's very uncomfortable to be like grabbed in a giant owl's talons and flown underneath the owl. I'm just going to see how uncomfortable. Actually, let's just put a number to it. Quantify your levels of discomfort. 16 plus your con save is a 2, so 18 con save. So you're doing well. You're not taking any detrimental effects from this. You've managed to kind of shift yourself as you fly to just be like, well, this is maybe not the greatest most dignified position to be in, but here we are. You are flying for quite some time, it seems. How big is huge? The huge category in D&D is for things like giants. They're usually like 15 feet in a dimension. Wind in the face. If you start talking, you're eating bugs. Yeah, Scarecrow Apis hanging underneath a giant owl. It's a very big owl, so thankfully the claws are able to clasp all the way around you, all the way around your arm and torso without actually any potential of you falling out of the claws. But he does fly quite high. It has been mentioned to Seed a few times, especially from Julius. He is like driven home for Seed, like, hey, safety of this village is important. You can't have a gigantic 15-foot owl coming and going into this particular part of the forest. So Seed, first thing he does is up into the air as much as he can to get out of most people's line of sight, especially so that the sense of scale will be off. If anybody does see him, they'll assume he's a closer, smaller bird. And then he shifts off in a southwesterly direction. Eventually, after a while of traveling, you can see the forest clearing. You can see that you've passed a couple of smaller rivers, and then you can see coming up a larger river. Not only the larger river, but you can see there is on the other side of this larger river a logging camp, and the logging camp has been relatively successful in tearing down a significant chunk of the forest. You can't tell from this height, and especially with the wind in your eyes, you can't tell any details of the logging camp. You can just about make out that it's there, especially because the landscape around it. And then to the south of there, just about on your horizon, where you can see like several miles south of the logging camp, you can see a much larger lake, and on the sides, on the shore of that lake, a very long, thin town that's on that lake, and then a cliff behind that town. So you can just about make out signs of settlements, seemingly like humanoid settlements, but you don't go towards that. Instead, you're going along past the logging camp and into the forest that they are logging. You travel for another few minutes past that point before Seed starts to descend, and he starts to just sort of go into a dive, because when he goes up and when he goes down, he tries to do so as vertically as possible, just to avoid the time, reduce the time that somebody can catch him and work out the direction he's going and stuff. The wind is really whipping you in the face. It's cold. You're on the verge of taking cold damage, probably from the wind chill factor. When he suddenly pulls up, and you feel like 3 Gs of force, you almost pass out with the blood goes to your feet. Seed is not very. He's not very in touch with allowing for comfort when he flies people around, because he doesn't do it all that often. He doesn't think about things like whether somebody will have a hard time of it or not. But whoosh, you slam down. Boof. How's Mel keeping up with the speed and height? Magic. She's flying. She's flying. She could have used one of those Fey flowers for extra speed. That's a good retcon, actually, Tree of Dave. Yes. Before you set off, you gave her one of the Fey flowers, which one of the sprites specifically told you was to do with flying at faster speeds. So you gave her one of those, and she went, and she, and then her wings started, and she started, like she's hasted, essentially. And you cast haste on Mel before she whoosh, takes to the skies and keeps up with you the whole way. You can kind of hear her through the wind. This is very fun, Apis. I'm going so fast. Oh my god, I've never been this high or this fast. You're like, yeah, this is good, Mel. I'm going to throw up. And then you slam down. Seed drops you. Poof, poof. You kind of tumble a little bit on the ground. And Mel comes down. This is so much fun. She's like hopped up on sugar. And then Seed lands beside you. He tucks his wings behind himself. And then he starts to hop forwards as the owl, not changing his form yet. 2 stars. Quick but uncomfortable. Yeah. Get out your Uber app, your Lyft. If he has to cover big distances, he does it as an elemental which doesn't have biological needs or feel exhausted. Seed does not account for biological frailty. Yeah, exactly. Everyone's happy but poor Apis, as we barf the moment we land. Yeah, you land down and there goes that good berry. I somehow don't believe that you've never been that high before with all the flowers that you drink, Mel. I'm feeling tired now, though. And the end of the haste wears off, and she gets the lethargy element of it. She suddenly lands down, and I'm tired. Oh my god, I don't want to go anywhere. You're like, that's okay, come on. You stand to your feet, and sort of Mel climbs up onto your what are we calling it? The perch, the Mel perch. And you follow after the giant owl that is bobbing through this forest, kind of pushing through the lower branches of the trees because he's so large. You can hear running water, and you can tell that the river that you went over kind of curled around towards the west. It was sort of a north-south kind of river when you crossed it, and then further to the north, it kind of curled around and started heading west. So as you've landed in that forest and then started walking along sort of parallel to the river, you can hear the rushing water, and you can tell that you're probably getting close to it. Sure enough, you come down and see this sort of hill that leads down towards this river, and you can see it's a very large river. You go down towards it, and there's this sort of shoreline almost, this bank of this river. And only there does Seed shift back into his seed form, because now he's holding all of this wood. And he sort of hobbles around along the waterfront, and you're like, where are we going, Seed? And he says, Seed, go just up here. And he walks further down, and then he gets to the cave mouth, and then drops the wood that he's carrying. He picks through the wood until he finds like a nice long piece that's kind of thin at one end, and he walks into the cave. You follow him in, keeping as much wood as you can carry as well. He walks into this very small cave mouth that doesn't seem to go anywhere. It's just like a nice spot for like an animal to hibernate or something. But he walks just beeline straight over to the back wall, the back corner on your right hand side. And there he jams the stick down into the bottom of the wall where the wall meets the floor, and then wriggles it around a little bit and then pulls back, and a section of the wall goes, and then he puts his fingers under it, and you can see this huge section of wall just turn upwards and reveal this corridor behind it, this large corridor that goes deeper underground. After he's opened the thing, he walks back and picks up as much of that wood as he can, loads himself back up again. You say, Seed, how did you know that was there? Seed attacked here once, and Seed followed. Seed followed. What was your word for kobolds? I can't remember. Dragon dogs. Can't remember what you call them. Seed followed dragon dog into cave here, and you're like, wait, whoa. You said you were attacked by dragon dogs? Yes, a small dragon dog attacked Team Goo, and Team Goo follow them and make them go away. Are they gone? Are there more dragon dogs? You're like following him very cautiously into this tunnel, like, I feel like I need more information about these dragon dogs. But Seed doesn't seem to have any worry about these dragon dogs. Apis' mind definitely going to half dragon, half dogs, given their experiences with dragons. You follow him in, and he semi-assuages your doubts about these dragon dog creatures. You walk down this sort of like it curls around and down a little bit of a hill. You can tell that it's kind of dusty and not used all that often. And then he gets to a point where it opens out into this like cave network, and there's a few different caves in front of you. There's one to the right, there's a big one in front of you, and then there's one that kind of curls around immediately to the left, and that's the direction he's going. It's very dark down here, and if you didn't have dark vision, you'd be in trouble. Definitely keeping an eye on surroundings now. Yeah, for sure. Apis is doing their best to keep an eye on surroundings. I will have a perception check just to see if you pick up on anything in particular in this area. 4 plus your perception, and you're definitely not in a forest anymore, not in Kansas anymore. So your perception is a 6. 6, is that right? No, 5. You've got a 5 perception, so you've got a 9 total on your perception. As you're walking, you're looking at the ceiling, making sure that there's no stalactites to drop on you, and nothing's above you, nothing's dropping. If there is a pointy in this area, then it's probably not. It's probably not in this particular cave. Seed has shown no interest in looking at the ceiling as he walks. Caring too much to see past it, yeah. Seed walks and then stops. And then you sort of almost bump into him and stop as well. And you say, what's going on? What are you stopped for? And Seed says, mushroom people have shouty mushroom. Scream mushroom make lots of noise if go too far forward now. And so he drops all of the wood where he is, and you follow suit and just kind of put yours down. And then Seed just calls out, Seed here with more wood. You want wood? Seed here. And it just kind of echoes off of the wall. Seed here. There's just this long period of silence before eventually you hear this kind of shuffling noise getting a little bit more distinct. Hard to pick out entirely because of the way that the walls muffle and echo sounds, but eventually you hear this shuffling sound getting closer and closer, and then you hear this kind of and then, and as these creatures come to you out of the darkness, they get to within about 60 feet, and that's when your dark vision kind of kicks in, and you see this huge, probably about 7 foot tall humanoid made of mushroom walking towards you. His head kind of like he's wearing a big floppy hat that comes down to here, almost like over his shoulders, but is otherwise this humanoid mushroom. He's very much bottom half heavy. His legs and feet are much wider stances, much wider bases for the rest of his body, and his legs seem to only be like one piece that is sort of split down the middle to walk. As you as he approaches, this fun guy, it gets close, and then his face, if you want to call it that, this large hat-like thing lifts up a little bit at the front, kind of ripples. It's like one of those thin mushrooms. I can't remember what they're called. One of those thin, wavy ones at the sides. It lifts up, and then this kind of this bulbous fleshy part kind of unfurls a little bit, and then all of these spores just kind of out from itself and tries to hit you. What does Apis do? This mushroom has just come out of the darkness and then released spores at you. What would Apis do in that moment? Hide behind Seed. I will say that I'll say that you have spoken with speaking to Seed about the mushroom people yesterday. It probably came up in conversation that this is how they talk to you. Duck behind Seed, hold your breath, breathe them in. I think as an instinctive thing, Apis probably flinches back and kind of like holds breath, and a hand comes up perhaps, and then you see it kind of waft over Seed, and you remember like, oh, this is what they do. So you kind of like hold your breath for a second as they waft over you. They start to land on your face, and you're feeling like tingles as they land on your face. And then eventually, you somewhat reluctantly but trusting in Seed, you breathe them in. And as you do so, you feel this strange psychic kind of sensation. You get these flashes of visions flashing through your mind, and also other voices that you're not hearing. You're hearing Seed's voice kind of like it's muffled and it's behind a window or something, and you're hearing Seed, but he's like talking in ways that aren't complete sentences, even less so than his usual. And then you're hearing this other voice, this deeper kind of gravelly voice that's again kind of muffled at first, and it's welcome, I hope you no experience. I haven't seen you from here. And then it starts to get a little clearer as you kind of breathe these things in, and it's a little bit much on the mind, but your mind starts to like mold them and push them into boxes that you can understand. And I haven't seen you here before. Seed hasn't brought other people around. Is this one safe for us, Seed? You must understand that we cannot. And then Seed's voice comes in and says, very safe. This is Seed friend. It says, welcome, Seed's friend. Welcome to our village. You must be able to understand me, yes? And he waits for a response. You say, greetings. I'm Apis. I gift you this wood. And then you hear his voice in your mind say, I do not understand the sounds you are making. Think with your mind. And rather than speaking the word aloud, like and then you think about the same, you say the same thing, but only in your mind this time. You're focusing on like thinking the words as if it's like a proper conversation. I'm Apis. I gift you this wood, and I'm asking for your help in return. I've not yet. Just trade. Okay, we'll not ask. Just trade. Just say I gift you this wood, and I ask for your help in return. And you pick up the rotting wood and hold it out. You see one of the sides of this thing, which has been humanoid and bipedal for the most part, it hasn't seemed to have arms. It was just like a trunk of a mushroom. But then as soon as you hold out this thing, this like a whole section of it at the side seems to tear off and create an arm for itself, which it reaches out towards you. It doesn't seem to have a hand per se, but just like this fleshy kind of fungus. It grabs the wood and seems to stitch into it with several sort of tendrils on both sides of it. It grabs it and pulls the wood back towards, and you let go. And it stitches itself back as its arm is retracting. It's stitching itself back to the torso. And then it's just got this like this half arm sticking out of about halfway down it. And it just turns and starts to lead away. Seed picks up a bunch of the wood that he brought as well, and you pick up the rest of the wood that you brought, and you continue to push through in that direction. On your way, you see off to your right there is a bit of an alcove that would have been very difficult to see as you walked around the corner in the darkness. You probably would have missed it. It's specifically hidden, in which there is this large fungus tower. Kind of imagine like a pillar box. Americans won't know that. A British post box, if you can imagine what one of those looks like. Or for the Americans, imagine like a fire hydrant that's like a really long one. It's like a long, thin pillar, a column almost. And it's like this sort of dark red kind of a colour all the way down. The top of it has several sections that have been peeled back, and there are rocks underneath there are rocks on the walls, like what's the word for them? I can't remember. There's sections on the walls of this alcove in which this large pillar stands, where the peeled back top of this this creature have been tucked into like cracks and crevices in the wall. You're not sure what that is, but you assume that that's something to do with the shrieky mushroom, the shouty mushroom that they talked about, because nothing seems to scream or shout as you walk following this mushroom. How about we can hear Mel if she breathed the spores too? Yes, you would be able to actually as well. One of the other voices in your head is Mel, but she wouldn't have the buzz because she does not have the wing noise that is over the top of her speaking, right? So she would have this sort of French accent still, and she was still speaking the Sylvan kind of tongue, so that you can tell who is speaking. So you can, at will, when you choose to do so, you can tune in your telepathy essentially between you, Mel, and Seed, and then any of the mushroom people as well. You can try to turn your brain off to those people, but it is harder to do so with spores, especially on your first time. So if you want to ever say, like, I'm trying to think of a thing, I'm trying to not give away that I'm thinking of a thing, if there's anything you want to try and keep back from these mushroom people or whatever, you need to let me know, because otherwise they will just like be able to hear pretty much everything that you're thinking. You follow this mushroom guy down a bit of a slope leading further and deeper into this very dark cave. Until eventually you come across these large toadstool-looking things. One of these mushrooms that's like really thick and bulbous at the bottom, looks like it's retaining water. Big bulbous thing, and it has this like fungus rooftop that looks almost like thatched roof. And there are a few others of these mushroom people as well, these mycanids. Just stay in the moment. Just stay thinking. Don't think about the Sentinels or the village of the Dreadwell. Don't think about these things. Don't think about these things. Just the secret village stuff. Try and keep in that back. All right. You enter this village and you see that there is an enormous one. They're even larger than this guy, who is about 7 feet tall. There is one that is probably about 12 feet tall, and he is standing outside of one of these larger buildings. And yes, these large toadstools things with thatched fungus roofs are buildings. You can tell that there's like holes in them, and other mushroom creatures are coming and going. Well, I say coming and going. There's not a lot of movement in this village. There is movement as you pass these fungus people who are sort of standing there. You see them kind of turning their heads towards you. You can also tell that you've moved off of stonework and into underground soil now, and your feet are on like spongy ground. And as you walk, you can tell that the mushroom folk that are around have rooted themselves into the ground. All of them are kind of stationary in the spot. There's a couple of people moving when they need to, but whenever they're not needing to go somewhere, they don't just wander for the sake of it. They root themselves in. You see this huge one that's about 12 feet tall, and he's standing in front of one of the larger ones of these buildings, and he has rooted himself into the doorway of it, essentially. And you hear a very deep voice that you somehow just intuitively recognize as him, and he says,
"Welcome to our village. We mean you no harm. We trust you mean us no harm in return. I understand you have brought gifts with Seed. Seed is a friend here."
You respond, "I mean you no harm as well."
"Good. How can we help?"
The one that was leading you walks over to this one and drops the wood in front of him. And you hear almost like voices in the same room. With this being such a new experience to you, with these telepathy spores, or rapport spores as they're known, it's a little bit difficult to pick out individual voices, because now that you're in the village of mycanids and they're all connected by these spores at all times, there's an element of over-talking happening. And as the one drops it, you can tell that he says something about the wood and the gift of it to the sovereign, as he's known. And then another smaller voice comes in, and a much younger looking mushroom person, much younger myconid, comes up and takes the wood and then starts to like push it into themselves a little bit, and they kind of like hug it into themselves and then walks away, sort of uprooting themselves with every step, and moves away into the darkness further away than you can see. Time check for what time it is at the moment for Apis to hear from Vala. It would be morning still, but approaching noon actually. It would probably be not too far away from noon. We hope to be a friend as well. If Seed would like some help with special ingredients. Yeah, Seed is already underway with doing his thing. He's still with you, but he's like offloading some more of his wood to various different myconid youngsters that have come across. Seed has been here a few times and he knows kind of how to deal with these people. He's offloading his things, he's talking to them. You can kind of hear Seed's voice in your mind as well. Excuse me, my confusion. I'm only used to my own hive mind, as all of your individual voices can be heard as individual voices now in your Apis' head. I understand you can manipulate and maybe restore memories, potentially.
We work together to share memories. Would you like to meld with us?
Yes, very much so.
We will share memories.
This very, very strong sounding of cracking, like a tree that's about to fall, suddenly sort of erupts, and you realise that he looks like he's about to fall sideways, and then one half of his lower body seems to crack down it, and then uproot from the ground, and you can tell that there's a very real chance that this guy hasn't moved in several days. He brings up his foot and moves it to the side. And the other one brings up as well and moves it to the side. And by doing so, he kind of gets out of the way of this large doorway into this much larger building, this huge diameter cylindrical building.
Please, enter.
Thank you very much, and you walk in through that building, and oh boy, is it musty in here! It is like there is a very strong sense of decay and rot. These as decomposers of the food chain enjoy this kind of material to eat in, and so it's very strong plant rot. Yes, very strong plant rot. There's no smells of decaying meat, which is usually the thing that is the most pungent and off-putting. So it's not immediately making you want to spew, but it is not pleasant to smell. It's like taking the lid off of a compost and going like, whew, it is strong in here. In the center there is this large brazier full of coals, but the coals are cold at the moment. The Sovereign walks into the room, sort of bits flaking off of him with every step as his newly created legs kind of push past one another. He moves in towards the other end as if he's like the leader of this. He's like, it looks like he's a chieftain in a tent kind of a thing, which I guess he is. And then others come in behind you wordlessly, seemingly having followed you, and start to add flames and embers to the brazier in the center. Is it cold in here? It is. Yes, it's very cold. It's cold and damp and smelly. It smells like parts of the woods. Resistant to poison. How bad is it? It's not bad enough to poison. Not even close. It's just very unpleasant. You wouldn't want to sleep in here, essentially.
We will meld now.
This big, deep voice comes into your head, and you can see he leans down towards the embers in this brazier that are now starting to get a nice sort of reddish colour from the heat. There are a couple of these other mycanids in the room with you, and any small movement that you can hear has stopped. It seems everyone in the village has instantly kind of stopped wherever they are and have just kind of rooted themselves into the ground. Seed also comes in and sits beside you, and you can see that he sits down on the ground, and then he looks over to you and says, "Maybe sit on floor, otherwise you fall." And you take his word for it, so you sit down cross-legged, and Mel comes and sits down beside you as well. And then as the just in time, because as the Sovereign leans forward, he opens up this kind of like wound in his chest. He doesn't do it with his fingers or anything. It just opens. This like this orifice opens up in his chest, and this huge amount of almost sand-like small spores. Huge amount of very, very tiny thin spores comes pouring out and hits into these embers on the coals, and as soon as they do, it starts to fill the air with this very strong scent. I need, if you want to try and if you think Apis would even instinctively try to like not get affected by these things, you can say that you're going to make a check of some kind to try and a save of some kind to avoid it. But I think Apis would ultimately try to give into it, even if they instinctively flinch from it. They know that it's a meld. They know that Seed has done this a few times, so they trust that they're okay. And so you let it happen. And the last thing you feel is this the ground hitting you on your back, and you're glad that you sat down because you basically pass out into shared consciousness of all of the rest of the mycanids and Seed and Mel. You're all in this essentially this shared dreamscape. You start to flash through parts of your day, your day-to-day activities, and you are flashing through being a ranger back in Shadridge. And even the time before the campaign started, you're seeing just like snippets of being a ranger out in the wilderness. Nothing's really coherent or sticking together. But for some reason, in all of these snippets, there's now like mushroom people there with you. You're also like interspersed with your own memories. You're seeing memories of Seed like clearing up the forest or talking to animals or turning himself into fire, and you're kind of there witnessing it. You're seeing some of his memories. And then you're seeing memories of this dark cavern that you're in, and these buildings that you've been around, and you're seeing it from all these different from different perspectives. You're seeing as if you are the mushrooms that are now melding with you. Your memories are becoming their memories, are becoming your memories. And then at some point it kind of like starts to settle, and the very quick flashes of these memories start to get a little bit longer, and we get a little bit more focus on each one before you shift into another person's memory. Before you even shift into Mel's memory, you get a memory of Mel back at the apiary with Jack Creed. This is the first time you've seen Jack Creed alive. I can't remember. Maybe that's a retcon. I can't remember if you'd known him before he died. don't remember. But you see Jet Creed like tending to Mel in her big beehive, and you stick with her in her memory, but everybody else is kind of present, like Ghost of Christmas Past style. You're all just kind of there and watching, and then you shift from there into one of the other mycanids. Eventually, it gets to your memory of being in a glade, and trying desperately to find a way to open this Fey portal that you know is here. There is this sort of chaise lounge that is naturally formed from this rock, with kind of like a seat naturally formed into it. And you go down to the water and you lift up some water and you turn around into the glaive to see all of these mushrooms and seed and Mel all there with you. And you throw the water up and you see it come down rainbow style, creating this Fey portal, and you step into it. And then there is this... And suddenly, everybody kind of cringes at once. And then there's this static, everything around you goes into this sort of snowstorm. And everybody kind of drops to the ground, and then there is this erupting boom from the ground, and suddenly you're back in the room, and you can tell that at the center of the room, the Sovereign has picked up the entire brazier from the center and has unrooted it from the ground and pulled everybody forcefully out of the meld. You can see that there is some discomfort among everybody, and Seed is kind of like holding his head. And the Sovereign, you hear in your head, says,
"You went to the other place." "I see. Your memories are disrupted by magic. We can help, but it requires brown mold. If your source is brown mold, we will help you get those memories back."
And then he slowly lowers this brazier down into the ground, and you can see it's like got roots dangling that immediately upon hitting the ground start to root themselves back in again. "I'm sorry. I didn't know that would hurt like that. I didn't realize what would happen."
The other place is where our people come from. We can see things that you cannot from your memories. But for you to see them, we need take you into what we are. For that we need brown mold.
"Where do I find it?" And then one of the mycanids, another voice in your head says, "Follow." He turns around and uproots himself and leaves the room. You leave the room with and telepathically say, "Take me into what you are. What does that mean?" And the mycanid you're following says, when you have essence of mold, fungus, mycanid within you, you will remember. We can meld your memories to ours, make you partially us." Is that like a permanent thing? It wears off, right? Does it have any other effects? Yes. You will see things as others do for some time. Interesting. He has led you out of that big building and to the left. And you've started to push down through this kind of more increasing undergrowth of what looks to be like a fungal forest almost. There's lots of different types of funguses and mushrooms and toadstools of different sizes and shapes growing, and like almost like creeping vines up the walls that don't require light, obviously. It's getting a little bit harder to keep your ground because it's getting a little bit spongy and slippy, and it's the cave, if you looked at it from the side, is kind of doing that. So you started up here and it's getting slopier and slopier, and you're starting to like pick your way down. The mycanid doesn't seem to be having a problem because of the nature of them being able to root themselves into the ground as you walk. But eventually you say, I just, you're going to have to slow down, sorry, I'm having to... and he goes, yes, you can't move so fast. The brown mold is in the dark. It is wet down there. You can't see? You say, no, not well. He says, you will need to see. He says you'll need to see in order to see where you're going. What is it that you want to do? Seed is coming with you as well. Wait, you can see other places now without being there? You can see other places without being there? We can see other things that are connected to us. Still keeping an eye on the door. Seed trusts them to trade with, but not with his life. Yeah, keeping one eye on the door, keeping yourself safe for sure. Presumably they're aware we were expecting a message shortly after touching on our thoughts. Yes, probably, yeah. It's mushroom poo, yeah. Seed is coming with you, yes. Is it safe to light the torch? Yes. Yes, your fire is safe this far from the village. You take a torch out, and with your tinderbox, it catches the tar on the end of the wood. It suddenly illuminates the different colours of the fungus that you've been walking alongside as well. Lots of different vibrant colours. You see a couple of smaller critters that are in this fungus forest kind of skitter back a little bit, get out of the immediate light. And then you follow this mycanid down a little bit more of a slope. And he says, and you say, can you potentially see a place that I describe? If you can see the place, we can see it too, if we are one. But for that we need brown mold. He gives you a few more directions. He gets basically to the bottom of where this rock face almost becomes vertical, not quite, maybe like 80 degrees. And then he stops, because even he's having a hard time now. He stops because now the fungus has stopped as well. He says, continue down. Once you get to the bottom, there is the slime hole. You wish to take the slime hole on the left and follow it to the bottom. The slime is green mold. You do not want green mold. There is yellow mold down there. Yellow mold is dangerous. Brown mold is too, but not so same danger. Take the slime hole on the left. Find the brown mold. Any brown mold will do. We need a handful. Stay away from yellow mold. Right you are. And then I just come back up with the brown mold. Yes. And then you start to pick your way down this cliff face, this rock face essentially, with Seed in tow. Are there any other dangers, you say to him as you're leaving? Dangers of cave, yes. Keep yourself safe. We see you are a good hunter, and they've seen from your memories of being a ranger and a hunter that you're doing a good job of protecting yourself anyway. They probably saw a few memories of like killing the displacer beast and stuff. Can we climb back out after we go in? Yes. Slime hole is not difficult to climb. And so you climb down into the cave. And we're going dungeoneering finally. In Dungeons and Dragons, finally in a dungeon. You climb down and you get to the bottom, and to cut a long story short, because I'm running a little short on time, you get to the bottom of this climbing cliff face, and you head over to you head around looking with your torch for the various different caves. There's a lot of different ways to go down here. There's lots of different options, but you look for something called the slime hole, which should be pretty clear to see. It doesn't take you very long, probably another 5 minutes of walking through various different cave mouths and things like that, until you eventually see this slime kind of growing on the walls, and you touch it and use the light from the torch to see that it's a green mold, so it must be coming somewhere around here. You follow that a little bit closer until eventually you get to the edge of the slime hole. Give the torch to Seed. We should make an arrow in case of danger. You're not going to be able to climb down the slime hole with your arrow out. So you you step to the edge and you start to head down the slime hole. Did the dragon first? Did that mean? Yeah, we did the dragon first, not the dungeon. Damn. Now there must be a dragon down in this dungeon, right? Otherwise, it's not Dungeons and Dragons. You start to head towards the slime hole, and for reasons that will hopefully become clear, I'm going to kind of railroad you here in saying that you don't get to make a dexterity save as you start to slip on the slime. You slip on the slime, and you start to tumble and down this hole. And as you're falling, you put your hand out to stop yourself, and so the torch hits the ground and tumbles a little bit as well. And then as you are falling and you hit the ground, the torch lands nearby and lands in a puddle of some kind and is extinguished. As you get yourself to your feet after slipping down the mossy, slimy edge of the underground crevasse, your torch being extinguished in a nearby pool, all you can hear is the drip, drip, drip of underground water being filtered by the sediment above you and landing somewhere nearby. The air is still. You can barely see your hand in front of your face. But then you do hear as something seems to scuttle along stone. But it doesn't seem to be moving along the floor. It seems instead to be moving along the walls next to you, nearby, in the darkness. Drip, drip, drip. You spin around, trying to see what it is, trying to hit it. Your sword makes contact with stone wall. It echoes off the wall. Clang, clang. It seems to stop for a while. And then move again. It's getting louder. It's getting closer. And then you're sure you have an idea of where you dropped your torch. You feel around with your feet, your eyes wide, hoping to catch sight of any amount of light in this cavern. Eventually, your foot hits water and you lower yourself to the ground, plunge your hand into the cold underground puddle, and find your torch. You shake it off as best you can, just as something crawls along the wall right above you, very close. Getting your tinderbox out. Eventually it takes several sparks from your tinderbox to get through the wetness of the end of the torch, but the tar eventually takes hold. And it lights up. And as you fling your torch around the other way, it illuminates one gigantic human eye, only 10 feet from you, and a glint of steel-like proboscis that shoots out from it, aiming for your chest. Roll initiative, as this is what you see. That is where we're going to leave it for today. Thank you very much for joining me. We will start with initiative with the Cyclopedes in the start of next week. See you then. Bye. Wait. Before you go, hit the subscribe button, please. It costs you nothing to do, but it helps YouTube to know that I'm awesome. And everybody should know that I'm awesome. Thank you.